Good afternoon, everyone. We are going to get started, even though we know that some people will be joining us late and coming and going. It's a busy day on campus and we have a lot going on. So we will definitely keep this to an hour. I want to thank you for joining us again. We have quite a few people on the line, 41 currently, and we really appreciate your willingness to spend time in these town halls. It's been really helpful for us to hear from you and to hear the kinds of questions that you have and to give you updates. So we will have time for questions here in just a bit. I wanted to start out by giving a personal thank you to each and every one of you that is in this town hall. These are the back room offices that run the institution. And you all have done just an amazing amount of work in the last 8 months. Certainly always do a lot of work, but the last 8 months have been really phenomenal. Just an amazing amount of effort. And I thought it was important for a moment to focus on all of your accomplishments, because in the midst of all of this, it's easy to lose sight of those significant accomplishments. We kept student services going during a pandemic. I think that is a remarkable accomplishment by those of you who work with the Student Success Center and everything that has continued to go on there to support our students. Our honors program has continued to maintain its status on campus. It's continued to admit students during what has been an unprecedented time of uncertainty. We kept the library open. That by itself is a remarkable accomplishment. And during the first months of the pandemic, a lot of that was very innovative and virtual. And all of the things that the library has done has not gone without notice, certainly in this office and throughout campus. And that has kept the institution going. And then we are significantly up in graduate students, which I know Adam will talk about here in a little bit. And that is such a remarkable accomplishment that it should not go without a celebration. It's too bad that we can't do some kind of celebration in person, but those graduate school numbers are worthy of a huge party. And I just want to make sure that we all keep that in mind as we go forward. All of the work that all of your offices have done have kept us moving. Some of it is not obvious to the campus. Some of this is back room type of work, and certainly in academic affairs, we have seen institutional research burn the midnight oil all throughout the pandemic, providing important data. The offices that support accreditation have just continued to press on and during a difficult time. And we are still on track to meet our accreditation requirements. And so that is a huge accomplishment as well. And all of these more routine type of efforts that have to happen every day have continued to happen. We didn't stop delivering the mail, in other words. And historians always talk about during times of crisis or war times when these kinds of functions stop working. And that didn't happen here. And it didn't happen because of your fine efforts. So I wanted to start out with that celebratory note. We do have just a brief agenda that we will cover that should take about 35 minutes or so and give us time for questions at the end. And we'll cover a health update, both of the grad dean and library dean will give us an update. Financial outlook, we'll get an update on that. And then I will just give a few highlights of academic affairs updates based on changes that we've made most recently. We're going to start out with our health update. We have Dr. Forrest joining us, so I'm going to turn it over to Rex to give us a COVID health update for the campus, and then for the operational level that we are functioning on currently. Go ahead, Rex.
Thanks, Dr. Woodworth, and I appreciate it. Hi, everybody. I am going to just provide a brief health update. I think most of you are aware of our operational levels. We're currently sitting in almost a hybrid yellow-orange level at the present time due to the cases that we've been experiencing on campus. I am, measuredly pleased to report that our cases on campus have declined over the last 3 weeks. We're anticipating about 50 cases over the last week period when we tally things up today. Many of you probably know we count cases from Wednesday to Tuesday each week and report those out usually on Wednesday sometime during the day. The case count on campus, we believe, is probably a little artificially low because of fatigue related to reporting cases. We also know that it's complicated a bit by all of the testing that's occurring in our communities. And we've really encouraged people to use that self-report form if they test positive, if they're experiencing symptoms, or if they feel like they've been exposed. And I want to re-emphasize that today, that we absolutely need to continue to have those forms filled out so we can do our contact tracing. We've added 2 contact tracers to our health team so that we have even more rapid turnaround in terms of responding to questions, as well as tracking those cases that are occurring on campus and making sure that we're providing recommendations to folks to either isolate or quarantine, depending on the situation. As you all are probably aware, Idaho continues to see increasing case numbers. Those case numbers are perhaps plateauing slightly over the last few days and weeks, but we still are experiencing a tremendous number of cases in our communities at the present time. I think yesterday in the Southeast Idaho Health District, we had 121 cases, and for a long time, less than 10 or 15 cases a day was a lot for us. And we are still dealing with hundreds of active cases in our communities right now, and those have the potential to spread illness to campus. We also, I think, are getting some increases in hospitalizations and some of the deaths. These increasing cases that we're seeing right now likely won't manifest as increases in hospitalization, or unfortunately with some of those individuals passing away for several weeks. And so both hospitalizations and mortality associated with COVID are what we call a lagging indicator. It takes time for those to develop. And even if the disease disappeared today, as some have suggested it should on election day, we still would be dealing with COVID cases for a considerable period of time. Unfortunately, it's not going anywhere, and we anticipate dealing with this well into next semester. The president did have the opportunity to meet with Deborah Birx, who is a member of the White House task force that is dealing with the government's response to COVID. And Dr. Birx told Kevin that they felt very strongly that they would have vaccine available in March. That likely will go to the highest risk individuals within our population as a first group of folks that will be vaccinated. But they were fairly positive that they will have the capacity to offer tens, if not hundreds of millions of doses of vaccine beginning as early as March, if things go well, continue to go well with the phase 3 trials that are going on. That being said, we need to be very careful with other disease mitigation strategies. And so I would encourage everyone to continue using face coverings, washing their hands, staying home from work, if they have any symptoms or feel ill in any way, because it's extremely important that we continue to decrease the spread, particularly to those that are most vulnerable amongst us. And I will stop there, Laura, but happy to answer any questions when we get to the Q&A section of our town hall today.
Thank you, Rex. So now I'm going to turn it over to Dean Bradford, who's going to give us a grad school update. Go ahead, Adam.
Thank you, Provost. I appreciate that very much. Hi, everyone. It's good to be with you. As the Provost mentioned, I am very grateful to be able to report that we've seen some increases in graduate enrollment. I'm especially grateful because I feel like we've all faced some significant adversity, as Rex was just talking about there, and including from our both faculty and graduate students, obviously, as we've made this push to mitigate and deal with the effect of COVID-19. Nevertheless, graduate enrollment has continued to climb, and we've seen a healthy increase over the last 3 years, and we've seen 7% increase just this last year alone. Big kudos to our faculty for recruiting great graduate students. The grad school is grateful to be in a position to help make that possible. But we recognize that the faculty and the strength of your programs that let us bring those kinds of enrollment numbers to the table. So thank you so much to the faculty for that. I'd also just would point out a few things, just kind of wanted some highlights here, some good news highlights. So at least 3 new graduate degree programs were added to the institution's portfolio this last year. Those are the Masters in Clinical Rehabilitation Counseling, the Masters in Computer Science, and the Masters in Nutrition. We also had a number of graduate certificates and certifications that were added. So many that I didn't feel like I could put them all here, but there's clearly intellectual growth and interest going on amongst the faculty and in the institute. I'm grateful for that. I think it's part of what's driving these increases in our enrollments. We also, as some may remember from our last budget cycle, Leadership and Administrative Council approved 10 additional GA-ships for the institution to begin in the following fall, this coming fall of 2021. And we've been apportioning those out to encourage program growth and innovation, and are very grateful for that additional support. So good news there. Finally, I just kind of wanted to, I don't think we've ever really collected some of this particular kind of data that's in this last point, but I felt like it was powerful, and I'm really grateful that we've been able to begin to track sort of the impact of graduate students on the institution. And so we conducted did some research this fall on what GTAs and GAs are doing in the institution. As you can see from these numbers, we currently have about 160 GTAs who are teaching or providing support that in 282 sections, course sections. Haven't had the chance to break that out and to see how many SCH or student credit hours that that adds up to, but we'll do that. We have 53 GRAs that are working a total of 985 hours a week, provide lab support, and 47 GAs providing 520 hours per week of support to units. So that investment that the institution is making in graduate students, and the investment that faculty are making in graduate students, not only increases sort of the intellectual vitality of the university itself, but it also translates into some really appreciable impacts on the teaching and the research and the running of the university. And I'm really grateful to the GTAs and the GRAs and the GAs and the graduate students in general for persevering and for making this kind of impact in the institution. That's just kind of a nutshell overview of some of the good things that I think are going on in the grad school right now. And like Rex said before, I am happy to answer any questions about anything that's going on in the world of graduate studies here at ISU, and looking forward to further conversation.
Thank you, Adam. great news, of course, about the expansion of our graduate programs. I think we will continue to see that because we've added additional new programs that are not part of those numbers. And that's really a testament to the good work in the grad school, Adam's leadership, and the work of all of our faculty. So it's very exciting to see that come to fruition. Our Dean Shropshire is with us as well. I think she's on the phone. Sandy, are you here? Darren, do you know if Sandy was able to join us?
I have not seen her or talked to her, but she said she was going to.
Okay, well, I can run through some of these things, and then if there are questions and Sandy's joined us, she could add on to this as well.
Hello, I'm here.
Hi, Sandy. Sorry about that. Go ahead whenever you are ready.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to talk to you today at the town hall, and I want to send a thank you to Darren for helping me put together a small, tiny power plant. I am talking to you over the phone only. You won't see me on the 208 number that you may see on the screen. I want to tell you that the library is fully operational and has been all semester. Although we morphed over into digital delivery of our services, they are all still being delivered. Still doing circulation. We're doing problem solving online for access problems to our resources. Doing ILL. Now we're doing in-class library instruction, whether that's in person or via Zoom or Moodle. Somehow we're doing that. And we're happy to do that. And that's going on at all three of our campuses, or library settings. With regard to our journals, I'm very pleased and a little stunned to report to you that some of the major world publishers of academic journals, notably Elsevier and Springer, at least, are recognizing that their academic customers are in a difficult situation. So for 2021, we're seeing signs that they're willing to hold their inflationary levels flat. Something unprecedented in my decades of watching this sort of behavior. So we are able to keep all of our journals. We knew we could anyway because of the support of the administration for inflationary coverage. But to boot, we're seeing inflationary be flat in a number of cases. That is terrific news. Additionally, the third floor carpeting project on the third floor of the Pocatello building has been completed. It's quite attractive carpet, and we are now open on the third floor as well for study and taking classes by students. And finally, another bit of good news. The library has learned that we are to be the recipient of a sizable and generous gift from an alumni member. It's in the 7 figures. And there is an advisory committee being put together at the moment to study some options and to give some recommendations to the president on how this generous gift will be spent. Stay tuned on that. But it's nice to have a bit of good news in this very strange and troubling year. That is the extent of my updates, and I'm happy to answer questions when we get there later.
Thanks, Sandy. I don't know if you were with us when we talked about the library's successes in staying open at the beginning of the hour, but certainly it has been a huge accomplishment for you and your team, and the institution is very grateful to all of you for that hard work. And very exciting about the gift to the library as well. So we will look forward to hearing more about that gift and what that will mean for our library services going forward.
Thank you.
All right, we are going to just quickly go over the financial outlook. We haven't had a chance to update you all on this recently, so I've asked Glenn to join us to give us just a brief overview of where we are and where things are trending. And I will turn it over to our Vice President for Finance.
Thank you, Laura. As you all may remember, we went through a painful process, or I don't know if how painful it was, but it was definitely hard work that all of you went through back in the spring, and the whole campus did, at eliminating our structural deficit pre-COVID. And we planned on having to use reserves this year for about $2.7 million. And that was because some of the budget cutting moves required 1 year's notice to eliminate a number of positions. So we weren't going to have the full benefit of those reductions until next fiscal year. So we were planning to use a couple $1 million out of reserves this year. As we then looked at what happened this fall, Laura already talked about enrollments down on the undergraduate level, up on the graduate level. We are about $1.5 million short of our revenue projection for the fall. And we were already planning on a 10% attrition between fall and spring. And so if we only have a 10% fall spring attrition, we will probably come in about $2.9 million over budget, over where we planned to come in for the year. In terms of the 5% holdback, and this is inclusive of the 5% holdback from the state of Idaho, and we said that we would be able to respond to that. It corresponds to $5 million. We'd be able to correspond to that $5 million shortfall or holdback by having both our hiring freeze or slowdown to save $2.7 million and the furlough plan to save $2 million. So at a very high level, where we are right now is not quite where we wanted to be at this point in time, not significantly worse, but definitely not quite on track. It is primarily enrollment driven. So based on where we are, we still have the same narrative, the same outlook that we had in the spring when we implemented furloughs. And so if nothing else has changed other than it's slightly deteriorated, there's no reason at this point in time to reverse the furlough plans for the spring. Now, that being said, we do have several variables in play as to how we will end the fiscal year. The first is spring enrollment. As I said, we're planning for a 10% attrition. And if we can stay at the 10%, things won't get any worse than what we're projecting. If we have a smaller attrition rate, that will actually help us. If the attrition rate is larger, that will go against us. We still don't know what's going to happen with athletics and other auxiliary activities in the spring. While we're planning to go forward, we're depending on what we can do and how widespread these activities can be, will depend, or that will definitely lead to whether or not we could get some additional revenues that we've already are projecting we won't get. And then the final thing that's hopeful, the presidents and the CFOs have been working over the past couple of weeks. The presidents have been working with the governor on looking at additional COVID relief funds. Right now, there aren't any on the federal horizon. We've utilized or have plans to utilize all that are available to us, but we are going to be asking the governor for, or making a case to the governor for some additional relief for the lost revenues that we've had. Certainly, if that happens, that may change our outlook of losing 2.9 million, and we can revisit what our actions are in the spring. But at this point in time, nothing really has significantly changed from last spring when we made the decision to have the furloughs. In terms of FY22, enrollment management and the budget office through Stacy Phelan and Jen Steele have been working on models to do revenue projections for next year. And so sometime by the end of January, we will have both a revenue and expenditure projection for the following year so that that can inform our budget setting process in the spring. And then after all the other slides are done, I'll answer any questions that you have on the finances.
Thanks, Glenn. I just wanted to quickly run through a few updates that we have sent communications out about from academic affairs, but that might require a little bit more explanation, or you may have questions about. We have formed or are in the process of forming a faculty impacts committee that will look at the impact of COVID on a number of faculty issues, including workload and the online environment, tenure and promotion, and faculty evaluation. This committee will be graciously chaired by our former Faculty Senate co-chairs, Laura Ahola Young and Rick Wagner. I met with them yesterday and they've agreed to co-chair this. I think they were a little nervous when my invitation showed up in their inboxes because they knew I was going to ask them to do work, but they have agreed to do it. And that committee will start meeting probably in the next few weeks and has about a 3-month timeline to deliver its recommendations, which will go to the Council of Deans and ultimately to Leadership Council and Admin Council. Types of recommendations that I expect to see from this body include some guidance around how to handle tenure and promotion cases in situations where faculty members have taken advantage of stop the clock for COVID reasons, which moves us to our next item, which is that we have sent out a streamlined version of stop the clock that's related to COVID. Any COVID related stop the clock tenure and promotion or tenure deferral will be automatically approved, and there is a streamlined process for requesting that. And it's linked here as well as available on the Academic Affairs website and has gone out in a communication as well. Finals week is, as you all know, the week after Thanksgiving. We've taken part of Thanksgiving week as instructional, Monday and Tuesday. Just a reminder that the following week after Thanksgiving is a fully online finals week. There are a few exceptions to that for specific programs, but for the most part, the entire term will end at the end of the week following Thanksgiving, with the exception of a few programs in Rex's division that needed additional time for clinical rotations to work themselves out. And then winter commencement. President Satterley sent out a communication about this I just think it was just last week. I mean, time during COVID is odd, so it feels like longer ago than that. But essentially, we have made the very difficult decision to cancel our face-to-face winter commencement event, which would have been the weekend before Thanksgiving, moving it to a virtual environment and having that in December. That was a difficult decision because we really wanted to celebrate in a face-to-face environment, but of course, it's just not possible to do that given the amount of community spread that we're seeing in the state and in our communities. And as a result, we have a really great plan that the commencement team came up with for a virtual and very meaningful experience for students that will involve faculty and chairs and deans. So you'll be hearing more about that as we go forward. And then I wanted to say just a couple of things about the spring schedule. We have altered the spring schedule as well. We have moved spring break, which is generally in March. We have moved it to April, to the week before finals week. We will have a spring break, but it has moved. And that spring schedule is posted here as on the Academic Affairs website and on the registrar's website. And immediately following a later spring break, we will have a fully virtual, at least that's what we're planning for now, fully virtual online finals week. So the spring term will mirror the fall term in the way the breaks are falling, except that there will be a longer spring break than there is Thanksgiving break for fall. And then we will wrap up, hopefully, with a commencement event that looks different than the one we're having for winter. We can all be hopeful. In relationship to the spring schedule, we are planning for a schedule in terms of course delivery that looks the same as fall. So it's a mix of online, of high flex, of various distance learning, and socially distanced face-to-face courses. Those courses that need an exception, a health exception, will have to refile that health exception request. And with that, I will turn it over to all of you for any questions that you might have. Or not, there's no requirement that we have questions. Because I know everybody's like just super exhausted by this point.
Hi, Laura. So I posted the directions on how to submit questions. You can ask them to me privately or publicly. And we do have one question. This one's for Adam. And the question is, how do you account for the uptick in enrollment in grad school?
Good question. I think there's a lot of different factors that drive increases in graduate enrollment. We know that historically, when there are downturns in the economic landscape, that folks have a tendency to come back to graduate school. So given the fact that we've seen some of that recently as a result of COVID, one could point towards that. There's probably a little of that going on, but what's really interesting is that our uptick in grad enrollment has preceded that phenomenon. And so you can't sort of make a one-to-one correlation to that, but you'll definitely hear some talk about that. And we might see a little bit of a bump from that or a sustained growth from that. I think the other part of this is that I think we do have a very strong portfolio of graduate programs here at ISU. It's one of the things that attracted me here. And we have a lot of interest in the surrounding area in those programs. I think our mandate as the sort of the state's lead health professions institution is helping there, and we've seen some growth there. But we've also seen some growth in places like our Master's in Spanish program, which has just sort of taken off and has 60 students, and 2 years ago didn't exist. So, we're seeing this growth across the board, and I think I think departments and colleges are doing a good job of understanding where there's demand and where they can begin to attend to that by creating new programs. So I think that there's several things that factor into this, but those are at least two important components, I guess I would say.
Thanks, Adam. That's excellent news from the graduate school. I have a question about remote work for employees. And Laura, I'll point this one to you. If you could go over the current guidelines as far as staff and faculty working remotely.
Yes, absolutely. So as Rex said, we are in kind of an orange-yellow category at this point that is outlined on the website, and we can link you to that. I want to, before I forget to do it, thank Ginny again for her facilitation of these events. I do not know how many town halls you've been to, Ginny, but it's a lot. And we really appreciate your help with this. So thank you for that. In terms of remote work for faculty and staff, we are in a situation where we're seeing rising cases, as Rex noted, and we have been encouraging telework for some time. We've encouraged offices on campus to have telework options for certainly at-risk employees, but for all employees, as it is feasible to do so. In cases where it's not feasible and there are complications in terms of the staffing, those are things that we can help you with. We can help you work through those challenges if needed. But we are encouraging telework for everyone. I'm in the office today, but I'm only here right now on a rotational basis. Joanne Tolkle and I trade off our time in the office. So I'm here about 2.5 days and Joanne's here about 2.5 days. We share the better bandwidth here in the office. And we recommend that you all do the same, that you have some kind of rotation, skeletal crews, of course, in the offices that are student facing. But for faculty in particular, if faculty are not teaching on a day or they're not face-to-face, certainly we are encouraging telework for all faculty. So I hope that message has been made clear. Certainly if there are questions or specific concerns, as I mentioned, we can help you address those. We can also work with HR to help address those. And I wanted to just say a couple of things about Twin Falls because we don't do separate operational levels for Twin, but Twin Falls has gone to a high risk category in its area. College of Southern Idaho has remained open and its offices are open, but ISU is allowing Twin Falls employees to work remotely and 100% remotely as well. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear because there is a difference between ISU and CSI in Twin Falls at this time. That's not a requirement of our Twin Falls staff. They certainly can go in if they need to, but we are encouraging 100% telework there right now. Rex, did you want to add anything to that? If he's still here.
I'm still here. No, I didn't have anything to add. I think that it does make sense, like you said, for folks to telework wherever possible. And when it isn't possible to work through a staffing plan that minimizes exposure both in the workplace as well as, obviously at home and out in the community.
Okay,
thanks, Rex.
Thank you. Thanks, Rex and Laura. Next question. What recourse does an employee have if he or she feels pressured to be in the office physically but does not feel safe being there?
That's certainly something that we can help with. So the provost office can help mitigate that situation as well as HR. I know that HR has fielded a number of those questions, certainly related to anxiety that staff are having about a requirement or a perceived requirement to be in the office. But I want to make it very clear that institutionally, we are not requiring people to be in the office unless they absolutely have to be. And that's where this can be a negotiation. So if you're uncomfortable, if there is a concern, there are some things that we can do in the provost's office and in HR to help negotiate that situation at the office level. So I would suggest reaching out either to my office or to HR to work through some of those issues. Now, of course, there are some extreme circumstances that are very unique. Custodial work, for example, is one of those, which is obviously required to be in person. And there are some other examples in the clinical fields, and certainly Dr. Force has been working through a lot of that in the division of people who have to be in a clinical environment. And those are face-to-face environments, of course. But the vast majority of what we do at the institution, a big chunk of it can be done remotely, and we can work with you to work that out. We definitely want to send the message at the provost level that there is absolutely no penalty for working at home. And so I want to make sure that that's clear. There is no penalty for working at home. And if you have concerns or questions about that, reach out to my office directly.
Thank you. Next question. Laura, I'm going to let point this one to you, and then if you want to open it up to Adam and Sandy as well. There's a lot of COVID fatigue. It's election day. There's a lot happening locally across the state and nation. What would you say to us to help us and our students feel motivated to finish out the semester strong?
Oh, such a good question. And I'm glad this came up because I think it's really important that we talk about it. I think it's important that we talk about the anxiety everybody has around this election season. It's a historic election, and there's no question about that. It is probably one of the more historic elections in the history of the US, and as a result, there's a lot of anxiety around it. We also are in the middle, of course, of a pandemic that has colored everything that we do and has changed the way we do everything. And as a result, there is an unprecedented amount of fatigue and anxiety around all of this, and that it essentially has impacted the environment within which we all work. As a result, the way to get through this, as the experts have been telling me, I am certainly no expert in this, but I can tell you from a historical perspective that these types of situations and crises in world history have yielded changes that have caused anxiety and frustration for populations in the past. And giving yourself a break is important. Thinking about the successes differently. Maybe it's not what you thought it was going to be. Maybe your class didn't go the way you thought it would. Maybe your project has had some barriers. Thinking about successes differently. Getting through the day is a success right now. The fact that we are all here on a Zoom call is a big win. We have figured out how to do this. That is a success, and we need to think of it that way. We are not bowing down to this crisis, but we are taking the precautions that we need to take to keep each other safe. That's a success too. So thinking about success differently, taking time for yourself, being kind to each other, being cognizant of how many hours of Zoom calls you're taking, I think is important as well. Certainly too many is not good. I think we all know now how that feels at the end of a day. I would say limit those. Use the phone. There's nothing wrong with the phone. It's okay not to be on video all the time. And, you know, those are the kinds of, they sound simple, but they can make a difference to our everyday lives. And I think that's the important thing, that we take care of each other, that we remain safe, that we follow protocols, and that we do everything possible to be kind to ourselves, to take care of our families, and to pay attention to those signals. Maybe you need to take a break. Maybe you should cancel that meeting if it is not something that's critically important. This is a time to think differently about what emergencies really are and what are the real crises that we face. So all of those things can help. And certainly we have experts on campus who are much better at this than me. We have them in the Division of Health Sciences, and we have them in counseling and testing, and I would recommend reaching out to them as well if for tips on how to get through the day and how to help our students get through the next 3 to 4 weeks. They're almost there. I mean, this is a critical time, but they're really through the worst of it at this point. It's toward the end. So I think that's another way to help them think about that. And in terms of the campus environment, it's important that we all are cognizant of the high level of anxiety that everyone is under around the election, and just to take additional opportunities to give support and compassion during this highly anxious period of time.
Thanks, Laura. That's all we have for questions, but I'll put our email addresses in the chat in case there are any additional ones, and then I'll turn it back over to you for any closing thoughts.
Well, I think in closing, I just want to again reiterate that what you all have done is worthy of a big celebration that hopefully we will be able to have face-to-face by summer. And Kevin has said, the minute he can have a big gathering on the quad, he's going to do it. So he will hopefully, be able to do that certainly in the beginning of the fall term, we're hopeful, but maybe even in the spring. In the interim, I think it's important, as I said, to continue to celebrate the small successes, which what would have maybe seemed like small successes, but actually are big successes. The fact that we are still open is a big success, and we need to pat ourselves on the back about that, and to embrace the fact that we are succeeding, and that it maybe doesn't look like we thought it would look, but that doesn't mean it's not a big win. So with that, I will give you back about 12 minutes in your day. I see that as a big win as well. And hopefully you can take a quick walk or something because it's beautiful outside, and get off the Zoom call for a little while and do something for yourselves. So I appreciate the time and the effort. And certainly I'm here if you need to talk about things that are concerning you. And HR has said that they are certainly available as well. So we're doing great, even if it doesn't feel like that every day. Thank you guys. Have a great day.